He had always thrived under the spotlight, the applause, the admiration of hundreds of strangers who had no idea who he truly was. Ethan Blackwell, my husband of 7 years, was a man adored by the world, a motivational speaker and entrepreneur whose charisma seemed limitless. But I had seen the cracks, the shadows behind the smiles, the lies he whispered when no one was watching. I never imagined, though, that his cruelty would reach its peak on the night of his biggest gala, a celebration of his company's 20 years of success. I had been by his side at every event, every speech, quietly supporting him, cheering for him, and hiding the growing unease in my heart. That night, I believed he wanted to honor me, perhaps acknowledge the silent sacrifices I had made. But nothing could have prepared me for what unfolded. The auditorium was packed, the chandeliers glittering, the murmur of anticipation humming in the air. Ethan called me to the stage, smiling broadly as if I were about to share in his triumph. My steps were hesitant, my heart hammering, yet I tried to maintain the composure I had learned to perfect over the years. The audience's eyes followed me as I approached the microphone beside him. And then, in a voice dripping with mockery, he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the woman who thought she could keep up with me, but has always been inadequate." The words hit like a bullet to my chest. "Insecure, weak, and frankly, the biggest mistake I ever made," he added, laughing as the crowd shifted uncomfortably. Some chuckled nervously, others averted their eyes, but I was frozen, trapped in a nightmare disguised as a public spectacle. I wanted to disappear, to sink into the floor, but then I remembered the secret I had held for months, a secret that could destroy him utterly, a secret that no one, not even his loyal admirers, had the faintest inkling existed. Weeks ago, I had stumbled upon the proof: recordings, hidden camera clips, messages, emails, all exposing Ethan's double life. The man who charmed the world had spent years defrauding investors, manipulating colleagues, betraying friends, and lying to the people who trusted him the most. The man who humiliated me in front of everyone was a fraud, and I held the evidence in my hands. My humiliation burned, but my resolve was fire. I left the stage without a word, retreating backstage. My hand brushed against the flash drive I had hidden in my clutch. It contained everything. Every lie, every betrayal, every moment Ethan thought he had concealed. I handed it discreetly to the events technician, a man who had quietly observed Ethan's arrogance for years. "Play it at my signal," I whispered, my voice calm despite the storm raging inside me. He nodded. I returned to the stage, keeping my composure as Ethan resumed speaking, oblivious to the trap that was about to ensnare him. As he boasted about integrity and success, I raised my hand subtly. The auditorium lights dimmed. The giant screen behind us flickered. Ethan paused mid-sentence, confusion etching his features. Then the first clip played. It was him, in his office, berating a client for refusing a fraudulent transaction, his voice sharp and unrelenting. The audience gasped. Before he could speak, the next clip revealed him forging contracts, his signature flowing over documents with precision and malice. Then came the messages to multiple women, his laughter recorded in voice notes as he boasted about deceiving his investors. Each revelation hit harder than the last, and the audience's murmurs grew into a roar of disbelief. Ethan's face drained of color, his charm dissolving with every frame. But the climax was yet to come. The final video appeared. Ethan speaking to his assistant, mocking me behind my back, calling me pathetic, useless, and too blind to leave. The words he had whispered, the same ones that had pierced my heart for years, were now echoed to hundreds of people in real time. He lunged for the technician, screaming, "Stop it! Stop this!" Security restrained him as his empire, carefully constructed over decades, began to crumble before his own eyes. Sponsors left, investors whispered about immediate action, and colleagues stared in disbelief, some in horror, others in relief. I picked up the microphone, my hands steady despite the adrenaline, my voice carrying across the hall. "You humiliated me tonight, Ethan. You have humiliated many others throughout your life. But tonight is not about revenge. Tonight is truth. The audience erupted, the air thick with shock, anger, and vindication. Ethan tried to speak, his mouth opening, but the crowd drowned him out with shouts of outrage. He could no longer control the narrative, could no longer command the stage that had once been his kingdom. Security dragged him backstage as he screamed my name, but I stayed on the stage, breathing deeply for the first time in years. I felt the weight lift from my shoulders. I had been a silent witness to his cruelty, a hidden avenger, and now the world would see him for what he truly was. The legal teams were already in motion. Authorities would review the evidence I had provided. Within hours, his reputation would be obliterated. Within days, his empire would collapse entirely. And me? I walked off that stage knowing I had reclaimed my life, my dignity, my freedom. I had been humiliated, yes, but the tables had turned in the most spectacular, irreversible way. The man who had once made me feel invisible and worthless was now exposed, powerless, and alone. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to smile, not because I enjoyed seeing him fall, but because I had survived, because I had turned heartbreak into empowerment. The cool night air kissed my face as I left the auditorium. I didn't look back, not once. The stage where I had been shamed had become the place where justice was served. The door closed behind me, and with it, the final chapter of my suffering. Ethan Blackwell's life, meticulously crafted and carefully guarded, lay in ruins, and I was finally free to live my own story. Tonight, hundreds had witnessed his humiliation, but only I knew the full depth of the betrayal he had carried for years, and the power I held in my hands. And that power, that truth, would never be taken from me.